1 hour, 41 minutes, 14 seconds, and counting. We're now into loading liquid oxygen aboard the Centaur stage of the Atlas V. And joining us now here at the console in the Mission Director Center is Craig Tooley. He is the project manager for the MMS spacecraft and has been with it for quite a long time at Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, as well as when it came down to Florida to prepare for launch. And he's going to let us see some of what we did to get it ready for flight. Craig, would like to welcome you, and maybe you could tell us when we roll the tape here. This kind of starts with your arrival and goes all the way through going out to the pad. So maybe you can tell us what we're seeing.
Sure. Thank you, George. So if we could roll this video, what you'll see is this is the arrival, actually, of the first of the two MMS observatories. We brought them down to the payload processing facility at Astrotech, two at a time, in this large shipping container. And what you're witnessing is the some steps in the unloading of the first pair. You'll see them there wrapped in their protective contamination covers, now being hoisted out onto the work platforms there at Astrotech. There you can see one outside being moved to another building. What you see here is you see everywhere we've gone, we've kept them clean, and that was a purge assembly running, that we keep the instruments that are very sensitive to contamination clean. Now you can see inside one of the processing cells there. And then the arrival of the next pair of MMS observatories. We essentially turned the truck around and came back with the second pair about a week and a half later. Again, lifting it off, you can see them there. The MMS observatories are about 12 feet across, each one of them, about 4 feet tall. That is, of course, without their booms deployed, which you'll see a little bit later in the video. And there you get a nice view of the bottom side of it as we lower that one down, again, onto a work platform. And there it is getting moved, actually, when it moved to the building to do the propulsion fueling at Astrotech, which we did in another hazardous facility. And they're moving it into the building and into position. That's a pair of them again. We called those mini stacks. In this view, you can see the solar arrays are covered. You can't see them with the protective covers. And around the top of each one, most of those red covers that you can see are actually protective covers for the instruments, of which each MMS spacecraft carries 25 scientific instruments for a total of 100. And they're a nice view of both stacks side by side as we prepared to first do functional tests when we were there. There you see a solar array coming off and our fixed solar arrays on the side. And this is actually a test of the solar arrays where we did a flash test to make sure all the circuits were still intact after shipment. And then you see here actually preparations for creating the full stack of MMS spacecraft, where that one's now on the crane and being lifted. And yep, now you'll see actually the full stack starting to look like the complete configuration that we had when we were encapsulated in the Atlas fairing. Nice view of the spacecraft there. And the folks working up on the lifts as we bound them together. In this view, you see a very nice view of the flight configuration of the stack of 4 MMS observatories, flanked by the 4-meter Atlas fairing, just shortly before it was encapsulated and moved out to the launch pad. A nice view of one of our scientific instruments there, and you can actually see the ULA crew moving the fairings into position. Essentially, the last glimpse that we got of these 4 observatories. We've spent almost 7 years building in preparation for the event this evening. And finally, there you see the fairing closing up. You can see we used the whole fairing. It's very tight. We've utilized almost all the space in that 4-meter fairing, and a nice view of our emblem there on the side of the 4-meter Atlas fairing. Shortly after this, it began its journey. Shortly, you see it there encapsulated. It began its journey to the launch site. On this transporter, we actually did it in the evening when there's not much traffic. There, it's being lifted. All 4 observatories in the fairing onto the transport vehicle. and finally here the evening when it was slowly moved from the Astrotech payload processing facility and to the vertical integration facility where shortly you'll see it begin to be stacked actually atop the Atlas rocket, which was in the days before this itself being stacked. Here it is approaching the vertical integration facility and moving on in. The MMS observatories, that stack you saw, is about 16 feet tall when it is together in there. And I would remind you that when we deploy the booms out of these already fairly large spacecraft, they are 60-meter booms on 4 sides when we deploy them.
Well, Craig, you talked some about the deployment, and we've got some animation that shows what's going to happen, coming off the rocket. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about this animation we're going to see now.
Certainly in this next animation, and here you'll see what will be just less than 2 hours away. There, the fairing is on top of the Centaur. The fairing separates. There's our stack of 4 MMS observatories. You can see some of the instruments there on the upper perimeter. We are spun at 3 RPM. And this is sped up a little bit, but sequentially spaced by 5 minutes, they are separated from the Atlas upper stage. Here you're going to get a view of the first of our deployments. You see our shortest booms, our magnetometer booms, being deployed on each side. And this will be immediately followed in this video, although this happens in total over the course of the next 6 weeks. This shows you the deployment of those 60-meter wire booms to sense electric fields. So we're spinning at 3 RPM and playing out 60 meters on 4 sides of wire booms. And then finally in our spin or axial direction, you'll see we erect a 15-meter collapsible boom, which also does electric fields. Thus, with these both in our spin plane and at our axial direction, we get a complete three-dimensional picture of the fields that we're sensing as well as the magnetic fields on the other booms. And in this last, as you see this, you'll see a little bit of artistic license as you see all 4 observatories in their formation. As Dr. Birch talked about a little earlier, we fly them about 10 kilometers apart.
Well, after we have that deployment tonight and you're on headset and you're listening, what's the main thing you'll be listening to hear from your test team that's happening that lets you know that things have gone well?
Well, actually, we will be communicating with the satellites as we're riding the Centaur. We will get telemetry, so we know they're still as healthy as they are now as we wait for launch. Then as they separate, we sequentially turn on that transmitter and talk to the TDRS satellites and ascertain that we're completely healthy, and we begin getting ready to actually use the propulsion system in about a day to trim out the perigee, the orbit, and such. But we'll get an initial within minutes after separation of each one, and we do that after about an hour and a half on the Centaurs, that we're in good shape.
Well, Craig, we'll look forward to having you back after we have the separation of the observatories to just kind of tell us how it all went. So thanks very much.
Thank you, George.
Good luck tonight. Thank you very much. We're at T-minus 1 hour, 33 minutes and counting. This is Atlas Launch Control.
Tank to chill down level. Roger.
This is Atlas Launch Control, T-minus 1 hour, 32 minutes and counting. The next activity to begin here in the countdown is the liquid oxygen going aboard the Atlas stage, the liquid oxygen tanking for the Atlas first stage booster. That will be starting here in about 2 minutes, and we'll hear that from our launch conductor as that gets underway. At T-minus 1 hour, 31 minutes, 36 seconds and counting, this is Atlas Launch Control.
LC on channel 1 with a comm check. SMD.
SMD has you loud and clear.
Roger. DSMD.
DSMD copies.
Roger. MLD.
MLD copies.
Roger. NSC.
Now C hears you loud and clear.
NSC
Roger.
Here's you loud and clear.
I'm sorry, repeat.
NSC hears you loud and clear.
Roger, NSC. NL